Hey everyone, it's Joey from Rainbow Resource Center. I'm the Participant Support Coordinator. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making fajitas together. So I really like to eat fajitas for lunch or dinner, and they're pretty easy to make. So I thought I would make a video so if you folks want to make it at home, you can also do that. So while your meat is cooking, I am making chicken fajitas. You want to chop up your vegetables. So you can put whatever kind of vegetables you want in. The veggies I have today are a white onion, a few criminy mushrooms, a yellow pepper, and also, oh my goodness, a red bell pepper. So I'm going to chop these up, and I like to chop them up in like strips. You'll see what I mean in a second. So first I'm going to chop up the mushrooms. The way I like to chop these up is to cut them right down the middle. So you have like a little half like that. And then I cut them in the opposite direction. Oh my goodness, I'm not so good at this. Opposite direction. So you have a bunch of little halves like this. I'm going to put those all in the bowl. For my peppers, what I like to do is cut off the top, and I save all of my scraps to make veggie stock later. When you make veggie stock, basically what you do is you freeze all your scraps, and then when your bag of frozen scraps is full, you boil them in a pot of water and you strain them afterwards. So I like to do that when I make soups. I save all my scraps. Awesome. So all I did was cut off the top and cut it in half and take out all of the seeds inside. So this is it with the seeds, and then this is it without. Then what I'll do with my knife, if this was laying down flat, I would chop along it. So I'll show you an example. I cut little thin pieces like this, and I'll do that with the bell pepper, the red and the yellow pepper. For the onion, what I like to do, you see the two ends, there's like the little nubbin and the hairy end. I like to cut between them like this. So I have half an onion. You can see all the different rings there. And then I place it flat like this and cut it in half again. So what you should have is a quarter of an onion then. Then I peel the outermost layer, like all that crunchy papery stuff, the skin. I peel that off, leave that for my scraps. And what you might be able to see, I don't know if you can see at this camera, but there's little arches, like a rainbow. So I want my rainbow to be sitting like this. And then I just cut little rainbows out, essentially. So I'll do that all the way down the onion. And the reason why I like to do it like this for my fajitas is when you take a rainbow and you take the piece off, then you have a nice thin piece of onion. So that's how I cut up each of my veggies. I'm going to finish cutting them up and I'll get back to you. So what I have here are my veggies all cut up, and my chicken, which has been cooking while I've been cutting up the veggies. With the chicken, I just cut it into strips. It's a chicken breast, boneless, skinless. And I seasoned it just with some salt, pepper, and garlic powder, because I'll add more seasoning later as well. So what I'm going to do is simply take this bowl and dump it into my pot. Make sure you get all the little scraps that maybe hadn't fallen in. When I make fajitas, I make enough for, meals throughout the week. So I make sure I use a really, really big pot. And then I'll just kind of try and mix this up here. So the fajitas I make are by no means authentic. I like to play around with some seasonings. These are some common seasonings that you might have in your home, possibly. So I have a fajita mix. I add that once the veggies have been cooked through. But while the veggies are cooking, I usually like to add a bit of cayenne pepper because I like a tiny bit of spice, and some taco seasoning as well to add some extra flavoring. Again, this isn't authentic, but it's what I like to put into my fajitas. When I do add the seasoning, I also want to make sure to add a little bit of water because it's going to take a while for these veggies just to cook in the pan. So I add water, and then I usually put a lid on it to help steam them. If you're wondering how much water to put in, if I were to use this cup here, I would probably put in like this much water to start. There's no exact measurement. And I'll probably do that a couple of times. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put a little more in. And that's just to speed up cooking some of the veggies because I'm really hungry. So I'm going to add some seasoning, not the fajita mix yet, but the taco seasoning and the cayenne pepper. And then I'm going to put a lid on it for a little bit. So I just added some of the seasonings. We've got the water starting to boil at the bottom. I'm going to put a lid on it for now and leave it alone for a bit. And while I'm doing that, while it's cooking, I'm going to start cleaning up some of my veggie scraps. So here's all my veggie scraps. I like to put them into these plastic bags. I usually shove as much as I can in here. And then when I have about 3 plastic bags full, I usually create that soup stock that I was talking about earlier, where you dump all these frozen veggies that are kept in your freezer into a soup pot with some water, boil it for, I don't know, let's say half an hour or so, and then you strain out your veggies. And then you let that water with all the nutrients cool, and then you can freeze it to make soups later. So the lid's been on for about 5 minutes now, letting those veggies cook. When I have fajitas, I like my veggies to have a little bit of crunch to it. If you can see up close, you know, the water's there's lots of steam. It's trying to cook them. So you want to give that a little stir. And I'm going to take the lid off now because I don't want soupy fajitas. See all that water there? And so I want that steam to kind of be released, I guess. This is not very scientific, but I want the steam to be released. So I'm going to cook it with the lid off now. We're having the veggies are a little more tender. And what I'm also going to do is start to add my pouch of fajita mix, which I have here. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to add it to this. If you look at the back of the pouch, I don't know if you can see it here, but it says that you want to add some water. But we already added water, so I'm not going to add any more water. I'm just going to throw this pouch in there, pouch in there, mix it up, and wait for that water to kind of burn off, I guess, or thicken, because I want it to be more like a sauce rather than a soup. So our fajitas are pretty much done. I added some tomatoes last minute. I decided I wanted some tomatoes in it. One thing you want to do to check if it's done is to see, like with the bell peppers in it, if they have a little bit of crunch to them. That's usually nice. Some people don't like the crunch, so they'll cook them longer. Either way is totally fine. But if you do have meat in your fajitas, you want to make sure it's cooked fully. So with the case of chicken, what you usually want to do is just take a piece of meat, rip it open and see if it's white on the inside. If it's white all the way through, it's cooked. If it's pink, you probably need to cook it a little bit longer, but it's pretty much ready to go. The last part of making fajitas is constructing them. So some of my favorite things I like to put in my fajitas, obviously I have my tortillas. Again, I don't make traditional fajitas, so probably some of these things aren't supposed to be in a fajita, but I like them. So I've got lettuce, I like cheese. Sometimes I'll put some sour cream in or salsa. I also sometimes put in some hot banana peppers or some refried beans. Whatever you want to do, you just chuck whatever you want into your fajita and you roll it up and you're good to go. Okay, so now I'm gonna wrap up my loaded fajita. The way I like to wrap it is I have to remember, I fold in the bottom. This is gonna be my top, this is the bottom. And I pull it and scooch it back. You can hear a bit of a crunch. And try and roll it. Every time my burrito or my fajita comes apart, I don't know if this is the way you're supposed to do it. And then you get to take, this looks so weird. Then you gotta take your first bite. Delicious. Thanks for joining me. And I hope you enjoy your fajitas.